Hello, dospook. So your video is fascinating, and I'm sensitive to the idea that you know, see, I feel like, well, you have nothing, you won't have to defend your position or whatever with me. But of course, I often think that, and people do feel like or have to, right? Just because it's like that's the point. You can just ask a question, go, well, what about this? Don't you think maybe you should look at it this way? And then suddenly someone's in that position, right? So, um, I made a video about projecting internal ideas into the world. It was about pantheism. And yes, I like to use the version of pantheism that says that there's spirits all in the forest. And it's not dualist. It's supposed to be a part, it is the forest. But admittedly, I'm loose with it because I don't really take it seriously. It's just that I enjoy that genre of being in nature, and frankly, yes, I have the way I experience nature. It's like that. There's a lot of daydreams in that kind of experience. Things that I don't. And I think a daydream has a kind of reality, just like hunger has a reality that's related to the physical world, right? You're low in sugar content and you need calories. But it's, processed into this abstract feeling. I think it's like that. Um, there's like you were saying, there's information processing. There's a lot of different interpretations. And, on a personal level, what a heavy experience to go through. And I see the parallel in the parts that I understood. It's like, oh, I'm not over my girlfriend and stuff like that. And I always respect people brave enough to, but I also respect people that don't want to mention. So I find it really very philosophically interesting what you said. And timed well, I think that, Matt was getting hit by the modern mystic on these kinds of grounds. Um, we have various people that are atheists, rational, non theistic. Now, to me, you can be all kinds of spiritual and believe in spirits. And to me, maybe you'll understand this, more than most, is that I look at words have a lot of different meanings. Every person that uses a word has a different meaning. If you really wanted to know what the overall meaning is for everybody, then you go check with everybody. It also means you get to have your own personal meaning. You're one of the votes on how best to define a word. People go around thinking they all have exactly the same meaning. So I think you'll understand what I just said, but not necessarily that you'll agree with it, okay? But um, um, I think we can share concepts, but I don't think that usually they have the same word, right? It takes more than just a word to get at a concept, usually, really. Technical concepts are ones that are like, it's arranged ahead of time. Hey, we say one word, we mean this whole set of things, and you can read the literature if you wonder what we're talking about. But anyway, I think people like Matt are like, they're on the spot for needing permission to experience their own lives, right? You know, um, I'm kind of analytic, but I think there's a place for everything. So, and I like a lot of poetic philosophers, and they do get highly analytical, like Nietzsche, where he's from that tradition, but he has some really incredibly strong analysis techniques in his stuff. Um, and there's other examples. So there's just a general assault on people using their senses and experiences as they really have them, and reducing those senses down to the parameters of physics, which are distance and mass and time, maybe energy, maybe field things. Right. Well, truly empiricism. Look, there's a lot of ways to put this. So first of all, that question. A lot of those questions can just not matter, right? In the sense that however you get your information, um, you could scope this for your own frame of reference. I would say anything that significantly impacts another person's frame of reference is, well, I don't really know what to say about this. I have so many things to say about it, but let me. How you interact with an idea. Well, no, let me put this. Okay, thou art that. An agreement that thou art that and I, not an agreement, but my understanding of the juncture between my way of looking at things and thou art that's, we reached many years ago. I don't know that he would see it this way, but he'd be familiar probably with what I'm talking about to some degree, at least if we were to recollect, those old discussions. And it's that, neither one of us is dualist. Now, to me, he could look as a dualist, and I could look at. Basically, we agree you use this empirical method, which is to use your perceptions to figure out about stuff. And that means it's all one kind of stuff. And when it comes down to it, he, at the time anyway, liked to say, well, it's basically consciousness stuff. I say no. I think it's, energy stuff. Energy. And particles and stuff. Though for us, we're brains. For us, it's made of consciousness stuff and, the dream world that the brain somehow, is for us or creates for us. Or the universe creates for us, or wherever it comes from, the part where we don't know where it comes from. That really is still primary. Okay. And he sides with sort of it being the consciousness stuff, and I saying, well, it's really this other stuff, but for us, it's consciousness stuff. And we both believe in following the senses. And I never saw a lot of theories where I think you have to be careful drawing lines. With thou art that you that meant there's no rules and stuff. So he still was basically empirical. It's like, well, you can see that you don't just think, I want to fly, and you fly. Right? Like Cashify used to press that. It's like just a matter if you really believe or really say it, or there's always some trick. It's like, well, it's at least very difficult. If it can happen, it can. It's not necessarily in everything is possible, but maybe it's leaning towards that way, right? But there's a translation between our two views, because in anything that matters, he and I would go look at the evidence. Is it good to have public housing, or is that bad? We would both go look at evidence, and we might say, well, this is an important factor. I might say, I don't think that's that important. This is more important. But, there's a case-by-case basis to things where we'd go find out. It's not just like, I know already, because since it's the mind world and I'm a mind, there's multiple minds, and there's it's possible with that perspective to find the reasonableness and rationality, because rationality is just where you compare things to make judgments. You compare things. Okay. So, the point of that is that, in a way, it doesn't matter. My view is that it doesn't matter if the world is made of a dream, or is physical, or if physicalness is really a dream, or none of that is really how important things work. It's more, personally important when you're talking about what do you believe of your own experiences, right? Now, I'm suspicious of all experiences. And like a lot of skepticism, it breeds a kind of confidence while there's a skepticism. Like, for example, let's say I see a shadowy shape out there. It could be a cloud, it could be some real thing, or maybe there's a spot in my retina, or who knows what, right? Okay. Well, it looks like there's something out there. Okay. And I'm trying to figure out, is it really there in 3D space? Is it really there? Well, one thing I would remember is take something ordinary. Something that's, like this God cup of the Lord. It's here. And so it's sort of a solid example. Is it really out there? Well, it's not the distance I think. If I gave estimates and stuff, all kinds of things would throw me off. And if I hadn't just taken a sip from it, but it was over there and it's in a different shadow and a different thought process about it at that moment, all of these would affect is it really there? No, there's something out there, but is the thing out there really where my conception of the cup estimates? No. So even things like this that are just physically, everybody that wants to come in this room could come and see this. I'm pretty confident in that. It's still what you're experiencing of it is the model in the puppet world in our minds, in the Cartesian holodeck. And so even it, which we say, well, this little model in our mind that our mind made up, it corresponds exactly to a cup. Well, it's not exact, but at least there is a real cup that it's not quite the same shape as the cup because but at least there is something it's tagged to. Yeah, it's actually assigned to something. So let's something that might be imaginary, that might cause a diagnosis. Is it really there? Well, it's not quite like the cup, and somebody else might or might not experience it. But in a way, it's a similar moot point, right? Because it's a conception of something and it's projected out in space. It could be various things. And in my view, because I am a materialist, it all comes back to, like, for example, let's say, imaginary, something you ate, like they would say, not to be cliche. Right? But I think this video I made about projections, it didn't post. I think that's where I was saying this. But so, the thing is, though, it's like I interact with images like that, and often I think it's because I interact and entertain them. I feel like I'm living in a world full of things like that, but I know that I'm in my own holodeck, so I'm not surprised if, like, my brain has populated the world with little pop-up things and woohoos and, sort of imaginary things, and I feel that it's just a language that my Well, if you want to really know the truth, came up with one theory here was that, most language is on one side of the brain, right? So the other side, the other half of the brain, what does it talk with? When it's talking to the part that knows language and it can't speak through the mouth. And I kind of think that one half of the brain that knows language kind of, sometimes it could get to be a bully because it's like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody what you think. You're crazy. And we think it's crazy. It doesn't have words, so what does it use? It uses image language, art language. So it I think sometimes it gets, it's like it populates that world um, with things, and it's good that it can do that. And again, it can seem like self doubt to look at it that way, but not necessarily. I mean, if you see something amazing that's like, hey, am I really seeing that? Well, yeah, you're really seeing it, but would someone else really see it? Is it a physical phenomenon? It's always going to be some physical phenomenon according to us materialists. So that's not really the issue. It's kind of like, well, what kind of physical phenomenon? But if it's your mind projecting things into that space, it's like nighttime dreams are important, personally moving. So you could pay attention and it can be of arbitrary personal importance, unlike the meaning of a dream can be. And that's kind of on this information processing thing, and that's sort of because we are brains, and you know um, the important thing is to stay safe, which it seems like you hadn't done entirely every time. But most of the stories were safe, if things that would put people like, ooh, really drove all the way to almost into Canada or whatever. But you didn't become hurt. So I think it's like a judgment call of, like, if you had a dream at night and said, hey, I had a dream I should go to New York. I think I will. Maybe that's a good way to get a spontaneous vacation, or maybe it's a bit too much. I mean, everybody has to judge. The interesting thing about what you give is that there's a judgment there. I can imagine being in that state of mind, and but my materialism would have kept me from doing that. So, but then again, you can't imagine states of mind, because if to the degree something is like a daydream, it can be like a night dream, and the like the difference between a lucid dream and just a regular dream or whatever. Um, I mean, the regular dream feels lucid until you wake up and you realize, I don't know why I would keep choosing that. But so I don't know what that's about, but I think that can happen when you're awake. And I double guess myself on approaches to things like this a lot. Where was I going with any of that? Well, I remember. Here's how I want to start this video. It was going to be with this. I think this was in the video that didn't upload successfully, but basically I've been thinking of this metaphor of late. Okay, so let's say you come to a new place and you see a rainbow. You move to a new place, right? You're a primitive person, not that primitive. You got twine and stone tools and stuff, and you totally have it made. But anyway, you do migrate somewhere and you see the first rainbow you've ever seen, and you're alone. I think it would be hard to know if that was real, right? If you're super rational and believe in double checking your senses. I'm a skeptic. I believe my senses will fool me, and it's one of the funnest things that happens. But it can also be scary, and it depends which emotions are involved and whatnot. But I just don't like to generally say it's a bad thing. But Hmm. I don't know where I was going with that kind of a tangent. Um, but anyway, if you keep looking and you see the rainbow enough times, you might start getting, an idea of how they're made and whatnot, right? You'll figure out how they're, what angle the sun is at. You'll notice these things. And on your own, even, you could make a theory that they're real and then have cameras and verify it all kinds of ways. On your own, even without another person, right? And this is crucial to me because when you're talking about believing things from your own experiences, we're talking about how can I do data reduction on my own human experiences to get the most reliable through to all of the input, right? And that's right. I was going to say earlier, atheism, to me, theism is about theo, the manly God. It's about the strict father family metaphor of religion, not all dualism even. But so anyway, the rainbow. All right, and the issue here is, well, what do you do in the meantime between when you've seen the rainbow once or twice and when it's 1,000 years later and your great 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 grandchildren have finally figured out why that shit happens? What about that time? Do you believe in the rainbow then, or do you think it's a mass hallucination? Everybody's just in a good mood today. That's why we're seeing. See, there could be some superstitions about what the rainbow is that in themselves would try to be rational. This uber rational, and by the way, I'm an atheist on YouTube kind of rationality we've been exposed to and learned a little bit about. Knee jerk, alleged rationality. If you think about it, it's like that rainbow's not real. We're just all hallucinating it for some reason. Well, whatever the reason that person gave, that would actually be their. Well, like I said, somebody said, we're just all in a good mood today, so we're having a group, hallucination of a beautiful thing. Just right there out in the sky, really huge. And that theory would be like trying to say it's not real, it's an illusion. When in reality it was real. And it would be attributing everybody being, it would be like a prediction that everybody must be in a pretty good mood today if we're all seeing that, and that wouldn't be the real reason, right? But see, I'm mentioning that with the hindsight of this as an example of something with an optical scientific answer that we've already gotten to, basically. We know so much. It's the prism effect, right? It's a straightforward, beautiful, lovely phenomenon of it. Also greatly, has a lovely kind of solution of, oh, that's why it's where it is and how it works. And we all see different versions of a rainbow. And there's a 3D thing. We see this like 1D arc, 2D, whatever. Really, it's a 3D conal. It's a really cool shape if you think about it. So it's hard to come up with examples that everybody can appreciate, but because you either choose one that hasn't been proven yet, but people have an opinion about or whatever. But the great apes, the mountain gorilla, rather, that was seen but thought by Westerners to be some sort of a Yeti kind of a legend. Turns out there was a creature. You just don't know in the mean times. So to me, that's enough, because that's the edge of knowledge. That's where we're really dealing with while we're learning things. is those kinds of situations, then you just need double checks to stay safe. You know what I mean? Um, it doesn't matter whether risky behavior is motivated by something that's conventionally accepted or not. You know what I mean? It's like if a beautiful angel walks up to me and says, go down to the homeless shelter and give money and goods and help feed the poor tonight. And I do that, that's one thing. And if it says, go do something that endangers yourself or someone else physically, that's questionable. That's not good in general. I hedge on that because, sometimes it's like, yeah, jump into the river, you're trying to save someone, and at the time you can be thinking, well, no, I'll be safe because of this or that. And that's where materialism comes in, is because it's like, it's just, to me, it's not like doubting things you've seen once or twice. It could be the rainbow. But it's about respecting, okay, like you said, I believe it's as real as much as my hand. And that strikes me as a little bit disrespectful of such a powerful hand as you are in possession of. You know what I mean? And their artist hands are probably like, whatever, it doesn't matter, I knew what he meant. But so I'm not defending your hands from you. But it's like, in ways, the funny thing of that quote of whatever is common is of little value. It's a very ironic quote. And it's not really true, but it is how things are valued. And if you look at it, it's like air. We really need it. We need it every second, and we didn't even think about it for thousands of years because it's just always there anyway. Unless somebody's suffocating you, you don't really have to think about it. And so the hands are like that. But I know you know what I mean, how great they are. And so the reality of that, you can have a moving experience. You could go watch a movie and go, wow, and talk about it your whole life and go, this was a great film and it changed my life. And invited you here, look at it. And, your hands are more real. You can hardly get more real than your hands. Because it's all about perception, see? See, it's not because it's tangible. Look, I hold up this lighter. It's not some ruler length. I have no idea how long it is or anything. It's just a bunch of sensations. And right now, it's scientific width and everything is just something that I know, hypothetically, I could take it. How often do you take out and measure it? I used to do that all the time when I was a kid, but... So it's the actual properties that I'm getting. Okay. So it's not that that's any different from looking at the cloud and seeing a face. It's just that it's not fundamentally different, but there is the regularity and reliability of this, even as a dream, let's call it, even as a dream. So it assumes all a dream, because in a sense it's a Cartesian holodeck. It's a dream that your senses are plugged into reality and they're trying to create an accurate dream. But we know the dream is mixed up. And what does accurate mean? You have all kinds of vibes of, geez, I'm kind of scared. And then you notice that it's, yeah, because somebody's been glaring at you and you're in danger. It's a dangerous place. So is that real or imaginary? Is eyes getting, it's all plugged together, and none of it, you know, things aren't actually just the way we see them. You could probably decompose space into all different kinds of dimensions and senses and colors and all of this. It's motivated, the arbitrariness has a historical reason and some logical constraints that give it reason. But pretty much, it's like the way our brain sees this holodeck works, the way we experience it, is it's as arbitrary and slash motivated and slash has a history as choosing watercolor versus oil paints, or one genre of music versus another, one instrument versus another. So I think it's important this is what I mean about the solipsistic epistemology, is that you look at all your perceptions. That's your start of empiricism. And even if we wanted like lab results to be the most important to us, that's not how it is. It's emotional. It's what you're really going through. And the important thing when you're thinking about material facts, to me, is not to ignore the rainbows in between the time, like pretend they don't exist you'll never get the scientific explanation if you pretend they don't exist and aren't worth looking into. And the main thing is just have a separate triangulations of philosophy to make sure that you don't do bad things to people, including yourself. So, and that's done with an ethical system, right? And so none of that necessitates not believing in a world such as you experience it. And of course, I just assume, from my point of view, that, I have nothing against having a daydream, and I don't think I'm minimizing an experience if I think, well, that probably was just for me. Other people won't notice that. And take it as just like a nighttime dream where, you can't get mad at your girlfriend because she does something to you in a dream, but you can easily wake up with that kind of attitude, and it takes a little remembering. Oh yeah, that wasn't really her. On the other hand, it was something you really worry about and think about her, so maybe she should answer to it. Maybe there's a reason that you had that worry. You know what I mean? So it goes back and forth, and the main thing is just keep everybody safe, right? And yet people like Gary, no offense, and the old mystic, I respect the concept of uber rationality, but you can see how those go into their own mythologies as well, right? So there's no escaping that. It's just a matter of being healthy for ourselves, right? And I don't think there's any need for anything called theism, because I think that's the theo is the father of the strict father family. That's what I've always thought. And as far as spirituality, I just don't believe in a dualism. If there's a spirit world, is this part of energy fields that are part of this world? It doesn't make sense for the spirit world to come in and out of the physical world. That would make it part of the physical world, so that's okay, right? There could be a soul. It doesn't have to be electromagnetic energy. Maybe it's graviton-radio energy, or whatever, Maybe it doesn't exist. It's the rainbow in the in-between time, and we can all think about those things. We just all have to stay safe for ourselves, right, and for others. All right. I think I'm going to make another video. I just see that about this. I don't know if I should tonight. It's late. It's not even that late. 11:30, but I've been programming all day again, working really hard on this thing. Maybe I should make a video on the Mongo database. No, but I was thinking I'd like to talk about this some more, but 34-minute video is going to take forever to transcode already, so I think I'll take a break. Cheers.